I see the city as like, and the repeat patterns in it, almost like an urban tribal. I think when you look at tribal tattoos, it's always what's around. You know, it's like scale patterns, fish, flowers. It's all like representational of your environment. Industrial imagery, industrial kind of forms. That feels much more true to me as a person and the people around me.
Other trace of anything, and then when he was like, okay, he ate it anyways.
You can't enjoy it afterwards, right? Like, there's no
Struggle. Tattooing, in the way that I work, you know, opens up such a big space for conversation. You know, it's very quiet, it's very still, you know, and it's just, there's a lot of like interactions.
So I'm trying to be super wary about, and anytime there's like secondary effects to medicine, they're for me. I take something, get fucked up after.
My name is Adam Sage, born in Kent, in England, southeast. Lived in a very small village, very rural, farmland, kind of small town mentality. Always dreamed of the bright lights of the city. Got into like skateboard culture young, just was like in a city. Was always desperate to get out of that small town.
Yeah.
She completely smelled me. I was like, I'm cleaning.
Yeah, I got exposed to tattooing very early on.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Did I?
Very first
Oh,
No.
you're always like that.
minutes earlier, and you're like,
My dad has tattoos. My grandfather has tattoos. My dad's friends would have tattoos, and I'd see it, but never really like wondered about how they were made, and thought that they were always, I don't know. You didn't get a choice. It was like daggers and skulls and panthers. That was it. There was no choice. Well, no, I went to get pierced, and they were like, "Oh, you're here to get tattooed," and I was like, "Oh, that's an option," because I was actually too young to be getting tattooed. I was only 16, and I didn't lie about my age. They never really asked my age, so I just got a tattoo on my leg. Yeah, I like this one. It's not full skeleton and it's not full man. It's kind of like, yeah, it's like a half mix. I got tattooed by a guy called Pia in Brighton. It was the first tattoo I got by hand, and it really hurt. And I was like, never again. But it was like on my toe, you know, it was just a painful spot. And then I got tattooed again by Zed Lahed in London, because I just got really sick of the whole process of being tattooed by machine. I was kind of like burnt out, like big long sessions, like big blood and, you know, like trauma, that getting tattooed by hand just felt so much like nicer. And then from being in a tattoo studio, being tattooed so much, it just was like, it just felt like a really easy transition to doing tattoos, because I'd already been in that environment for so long, and it just felt really natural to step into that, because I already knew how it worked. You know, I'd been in around it, you know, it just felt really easy. And then, yeah, just tattooed myself to begin with, but by hand. So needles attached to a tool, dip, something very primal, very like simple little tattoo. And then, yeah, after that, people are like, "Oh, you tattoo yourself, you could tattoo me." And you're like, "Well, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, what, you know," but, you know, then you tattoo a friend, and then a friend of a friend, and then all of a sudden you're tattooing people you've never met before. And it's just like, it just spiraled. I think my confidence was very low at the beginning, and a lot of people had a lot more confidence in me than I had in myself at that point. I think for me, the body is very soft. You know, it's very rounded. And I think that putting something like very square and rectangular, you know, on the body is just, it's much more, has more impact, and almost pushing back against the curves of the natural curves of your body. I think that for me, it's just more jarring to the eye, but you can do it in a way that's, I don't know, I think just very structural, very architectural, very, just bringing new angles to what's already there. And I like the impact of that. And that kind of repeat patterns of windows and bricks and angles and, you know, the inner city views, just somehow, I don't know, I really like that. You know, if I could just tattoo one thing forever, it would probably just be like fire escapes on people's bodies. You know, I like old movies. I like camera tricks like that. I find that really interesting. So, you know, after watching like animation, like really early animation and that kind of clunk, you know, very low level, very lo-fi. And so, oh, maybe I could do something. And so I've made the intro, and it's just called The Move. And so I'm just trying to come up with different ways to make him move in interesting ways. So leaving this space, entering a new space, kind of working it out as I go, because it's more fun that way, rather than having like a script. Usually it's the ones where you're like, oh, let's just do this, and then that's always looks better than the ones where you're like, oh, I'm just going to do this really thought out. Tattooing is so interpretable, you know, like for people like that turn up, you know, some people it's just like an add-on, some people it's like ritual, some people it's like, you know, it's just a throwaway object, you know, it's just like, oh, that thing or whatever, you know, and some people it's like, that's everything. It's transformational, you know, like people come in one shape, they go out in another, you know, it doesn't matter what they get, it doesn't matter how big, how small. I think it's all like, it's interpretational to that person. And I think that tattooing in the way that I have for so long, it's, I mean, I love it. You know, I love to sit down and get lost in that thing and spend the time with it. And I don't want to, you know, I also don't particularly know how it's going to look at the end. You know, I want to find out too. You know, I think that, I mean, I have an idea through experience, but I mean, I want to know what that's going to look like. I want to know how it's going to be like in the world.